breaking news coming out of Gaza, where at least 25 people, including children, have been killed in a series of Israeli airstrikes. Now, attacks were reported at several locations in central and southern areas of the Strip. Dozens of people have been injured. Israel says it launched the strikes after its troops were fired on in Khan Yunis in the south. And it's the latest threat to a ceasefire that's been under constant pressure since coming into effect on October 10th. Right, well, we do have two correspondents following the latest developments. We have Nour, who's standing by for us in Ramallah. But first, let's go to Hani Mahmoud, who's live for us in Gaza City. Hani, more attacks by Israel, more deaths. That's despite, as we were saying, a ceasefire still in place.
And Sarah, we are still hearing the sounds of Israeli military vehicles, the armored vehicle, the tanks, the sound of them moving over on the eastern side of Gaza City. It's pretty clear from this area. Also, we can hear the sounds of a drone buzzing above the area. The skies above Gaza over the past hour or so were filled with many of these sky predators. But over the past 2 hours, the Israeli military carried out waves of attacks targeting 3 specific sites here at Shujaiya Junction, an area that has been filled with many of the displaced families who are originally from Shujaiya neighborhood. They try to get as close as possible to their homes, an area where they set up their makeshift tents about 500 meters away from the yellow lines, outside the area that is under Israeli military control, where at least 2 drone missiles were fired at people as they gather at the junction. The other attack happened in a Zaytun neighborhood. That's also about a half kilometer, about 700 meters away from the yellow line, where a public facility housing displaced families was bombed by the fighter jet. At least 2 bombs were dropped on this building, killing 10 people instantly, among them a whole entire family. That's a father, a mother, and their 3 children were killed inside this building as it was bombed. The third site was Al-Mawas evacuation zone. That's on the western side of Khan Yunis city, at least 5 kilometers away from the yellow line. So we're talking about attacks that happen in areas that are not under Israeli control, but rather deep inside the remaining parts, 40 or 45%, where Palestinians have been pushed into displacement. The attacks already are causing panic, causing fear among displaced families, particularly those who just returned to this part of the Gaza Strip, the Gaza Governorate, part of the northern part of the Strip, hoping for quieter, for more stability. But on the contrary, things not apart from the daily struggle, the daily hardship, the ghost of the war. 2 years of relentless bombardment is still looming around, and with these attacks happening every once in a while, already Palestinians across Gaza living daily horror of coming from the eastern side of the Strip, the ongoing explosions, the destructions of remaining public facilities, the drones that buzz in the background all night long, keeping many areas across the Strip awake here without any sleep whatsoever. This is the reality on the ground, and the sad part, this is all happening while there are talks about the UN resolution passed, talks about the peace board being created, but things on the ground still remain very difficult. The war is still taking place, and Palestinians are still dying due to the ongoing violence.
Okay, a very difficult time, of course, for many in Gaza. Thank you very much for that update. Let's go now to Nour, who's joined us from Ramallah in occupied West Bank. Nour, have we heard at all from the Israelis on this? And, is this really part of its policy so far since the ceasefire started?
Well, Sarah, the Israeli army says that these airstrikes are in response to an incident where Israeli soldiers came under fire by Hamas fighters, although no soldiers were injured. Now, this is part of an Israeli military doctrine post October 7, whereby Israel gives itself the right to be judge, jury, and executioner in a ceasefire. It judges for itself whether there is compliance by Hamas of of the ceasefire or by Hezbollah in Lebanon. And if it decides that there is no compliance, Israel wages a series of airstrikes against specific targets. In this wave in particular, on Gaza, we've heard from Israeli sources saying that at least 2 senior commanders in Hamas have been as well targeted. We do not have confirmation that such assassinations have actually taken place, but really the message from Israel tonight is quite clear. It will escalate these kinds of attacks against Hamas if and when it perceives that Hamas is testing that so-called yellow line or attempting to test the boundaries of its perceived obligations under the ceasefire. There is no clarity on whether we've seen the last of the attacks and airstrikes on Gaza, but certainly this has caught the attention of Israeli media and politicians who've been commenting and really cheering on these airstrikes as an appropriate response.
All right, thank you very much. Nour Odeh there in Ramallah.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.